Yeah,
Today,
hello guys, especially the Duran. We kind of Russian military, and
Mhm,
I show some footage right now. Let's pretend it's add any value to our judgments.
mhm.
My fellow soldier is a nationalist. Let's say this. I am not. We can disagree with each other, but it doesn't mean we have to fight with each other,
At least for now.
at least for now. It's hard to see a rational criticism of Putin's interview. Usually it's just emotions, but one um, opinion attract my attention. It's Konstantin Kisin. He is interested to discuss his stance, so we do it right now.
And what he's basically saying is it's my duty to undo the mistakes of the past leaders, particularly the Soviet leaders. And so he's not trying to rebuild the Soviet Union at all. What he's trying to rebuild is the Russian Empire. He's trying to recapitulate within the Russian state the Russian lands that are historically Russian, populated by Russian people.
I didn't like Putin's interview with his introduction on history. It was just boring to me, to say honest. And indeed, it's difficult to imagine a year ago such big historian speech in Putin's interview. And something is changed. Something is changed, but what exactly? Is it really Putin's imperialist ambitions? In Russia, it's easy to imagine two factory workers, let's say, take a few cans of beer after a shift, sit down at a table, and discuss history. It's a part of our culture. We are interested in history from school. That's why we take such history lessons in stride without jumping to far-reaching conclusion, like many people on Western YouTube did. Or let's call Zelensky an imperialist as well. Recently, Ukraine signed a law on historically Ukrainian populated territories of Russian Federation. For many years, we have heard discussions from there about history of Ukraine, how great it is. Ukraine just sharing with us this cultural thing. So perhaps this lecture was addressed to Ukraine, maybe. It caused excitement among those who are disappointed there. Another direction, I thought. Maybe it's USA and Trump. Uh, it can be interpreted as saying what happened there is not your business. It's our business. Putin understands it may be boring, but he's don't care. Like we've been trying to please you enough. Or maybe it's really a sign of imperialist ambitions. What do you think about it?
Well, I guess we all know that Putin is really interested in history for of his life. He made his own historical articles on the Second World War, and he is really interested in Russian history as a lot of other Russian people. But I think that this that his message was maybe also to Western viewers because his message is that Ukraine was never a sovereign state, that it never existed until the 20th century. And it was always a part of Russia, and we view it as such. So he undermines the existence of Ukraine on the historical level. That we have a claim on these lands, that these lands were our lands for more than a thousand of years, and then we will find to the bitter end to return it. But um, I agree that to the Western viewers, it may be shocking to hear the 30 minutes lecture on the history of Russia, because to many of US and other Western viewers, it maybe doesn't for them it doesn't matter what happened 1,000 years ago. The thing that matters is that the things that happen now, because we now have modern day laws, modern day geopolitics, and these laws prohibit to claim and conquer lands as many countries conquered in the medieval times, and we are no longer in this historical period. But for Putin, it's really important to give a clear message why we are doing what we are doing, because we view this land as our own, and it's been our own for 1,000 of years. And uh, uh, yes, but maybe he had other ideas. Maybe it was targeted at Trump, and I don't really know. Maybe he had other plot, but he is really interested in history, and he really wanted maybe to give a historical lecture to millions of people, of um, millions of Westerners. I don't know.
It may be a key point, I'd say, that Putin just wanna talk what he interested in.
Yes.
Like you wanna make an interview with me, here what I am interested in. But
Mhm.
the other side of the medal, it's give our adversaries arguments against Russia and Putin, against us, because imperialistic ambitions, it's not a good thing. The world is full
Yes.
of historical things between countries, and if all the countries will remind each other historical, no, you understand,
Yes.
events, it will be chaos.
Yes.
And another
Chaos. Yeah.
chaos, yeah.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
and another point, let's imagine right political figures take power in Germany, and they'll say, we like your way of thinking. How about Königsberg? What will you
Yes.
say?
But the main thing is about population, because nowadays Ukraine is populated with the Russians, and Königsberg is populated not with Germans, but with the Russians. And the main idea of Putin is that nowadays 70 or 85% of people in Ukraine speaks Russian, and the one of the reasons we invaded Ukraine is to protect the Russian-speaking people of Donbass, Crimea, and other regions, and to protect our borders from NATO, and to
Do,
protect
do,
these
do you
these.
personally agree with this position? with Putin position?
Uh,
I'm
well,
not, to say honest.
well, I think it was one of the reasons because one of the reasons we invaded in 2022 because Zelensky was building up forces in 2021 on Donbass uh, border, and he was planning to decide the fate of Donbass with force. And Putin thought that no matter Minsk agreements, no matter what he was planning to do, no matter other agreements, it
We'll
the
talk
Western,
about it. We'll talk about it because it's one of the point is this
yes,
Konstantin Kisin
yes,
interview.
I guess there were multiple things why Putin invaded, and one of them was the Russian population living there. Um, it's hard to define what was the main point, but we shouldn't underestimate this point.
But we shouldn't overestimate as
Yes,
well.
as
Because
well.
right now it look like for the Western audience, for our the adversaries part of the Western
Mhm.
YouTube, it's the main argument. Look, Putin's imperialist. He wants to rebuild empire.
Maybe
It's
you're right.
against us.
Maybe you're right. Yes. Your argument, yes, is really valid.
You know, Russia was not seen really as a hostile force in this country, certainly in this country and in Europe, not in Germany, not in other places. In fact, there was a lot of business being done. So this idea that the West, has been attacking Russia or rejecting Russia since the collapse of the Soviet Union, I don't think that's observably true. But when we talk about a paranoid conspiratorial worldview, if you think about it, there's nothing more paranoid and conspiratorial than believing that other people want to keep you poor.
Yeah.
The topic that US made money from contractors um, who brought NATO standards to those countries, to those new NATO countries. But this NATO expansion really meant threat to Russia because NATO initially was created to deal with Russia and the whole existence of NATO is to uh, is uh, is to confront Russia. So we had, as was said, agreements with U.S. president not to push NATO borders closer to Russia, and um, it was a lie. So uh,
They
that's why.
say it.
Mhm,
Russia don't
mhm,
understand that power is changing on the West. Like
mhm,
Russia is
mhm.
so dictatorship, so they
Mhm.
didn't understand that people are
Authoritarian, yes.
changing.
Mhm. Um, yes, but some geopolitical things never change, and Mm, and one of these examples is NATO moving closer to our borders.
I
This
know,
is constant,
yeah,
constant.
they
Yes.
said it. They said it. I know one thing which never changed in NATO. It's the main position general in NATO, which always is US general.
Yes.
And if you don't believe me, just search. It's for sure.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
just want I actually wrote a text for this
Uh-huh.
topic because my English
Mhm.
is not good enough to express complex things.
Mhm.
So please, sorry. So I have to read
Please
something.
forgive me.
So yeah, please
Yeah.
forgive me.
Yes.
No sanctions more.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I want to show the Western audience how we see NATO.
Mhm.
Is it really just uh, paranoia, like these guys say? So let's assume NATO is just a club for gun enthusiasts. Uh, what the reason to distrust? Uh, First, what we seen in our lives. It's Chechnya. At the beginning of 1981, 75% of Chechnya voted to maintain common territory with Russia. By the end of the same year, the rebellious relative came in hysterically, smashed a couple of tables, and conducted another vote, which showed the opposite result. All the republics were watching. It was a tough time, and we were at risk of the entire country falling apart, inevitably leading to major conflict. There can be a debate about who is good and who is bad, but this was definitely a family affair. Yes, this club of gun enthusiasts began supplying weapons to that rebellious relative. The same club publicly threatened to impose sanctions against Russia. Then the relative was planting bombs under our homes. They said we, Russia, blowing ourselves, our citizens. They believed anyone who spoke against us at the face value. Uh, these guys, the guys, it's NATO countries. Uh,
Well,
I
let
just
me.
it's
Yes.
not the end.
Let,
Next, next, what happened? Oligarchs who had stolen money in Russia were also welcomed there. They were welcomed both personally and their ill-gotten gains. For decades, they have been speaking from the podium, complaining that the bad Putin cut them off the throat. They many, there are many dark stories in which they were involved, but they are automatically dismissed. After all, it's easy to believe that Russia blows up homes with its own citizens than believe that Russia could be right in anything. Next, before our eyes, this club has grown, including all our former relatives. They accused us of famine and repressions in all the Baltic states, in Georgia, in Ukraine. Corresponding memorial days had long been observed, and from the screens we saw increasing accusation in all the tragedies of the past. Once, in those difficult times, we were one big family. To greater or less extent, we all suffered. To a great, Despite the fact that all these countries had their local government bodies which were managed by natives from these countries, despite the fact that Russia has publicly condemned and continues to condemn the leadership and decisions of those times, still we continue to hear accusations of every kind directly at us. When, at the end of 2013, we saw our flag being trampled, heard humiliation chants towards Russia, and accusations from NATO countries of all conceivable and inconceivable sins. signed the poisoning of Yushchenko. We had to swallow it once again, because anyone against Russia is by definition was correct. And Ukraine's enter into the club of shooting enthusiasts is also none of our business. After all, NATO is not against Russia, and it's all is our paranoia. I'll give you a simple example, one that you have heard many times before. We only need to imagine that something similar is happening on the border of the United States. This example has no effect precisely because Russia didn't have the right that the big Western countries have. Therefore, Russia said enough. Now we are forced to provide the force to be a sovereign country through the force. Thank you.
Oh, well, that was a powerful speech. But I have to disagree with one of your points that NATO was playing Ichkeria terrorists.
It's not NATO. It's country who members of NATO. The US, European, they all was for Ichkeria, isn't it?
Well, the journalists said that maybe Chechnya was right, but NATO countries didn't provide Chechnya terrorists with arms.
US didn't provide with arms.
Yes,
Chechnya.
yes, and NATO countries didn't provide Chechnya with arms, but they were against this war, and
I remind, maybe I'm not right about weapons, but I need to search more to be sure.
yes,
But another
yes,
point.
they stole or they bought weapons from Georgia, which wasn't a NATO member by then. They smuggled some weapons and they stole some weapons from Georgia because Chechnya had a border with Georgia back then, and Chechen terrorists passed through mountains with Georgia, and they either stole weapons or bought them from the corrupt military officials of Georgia, and they also stole.
I understand. It's
But journalists, Western journalists, supported Chechen terrorists. I agree with it. Some government officials supported Chechen terrorists. I agree with it, and even some of these Chechen terrorists are now in Western countries in Europe. Some of them are real terrorists who used to cut throats of Russian soldiers. These are not opposition. These are not opposition who oppose Putin. These are real life terrorists like ISIS, like ISIL, who murdered civilians, who really were involved in slavery. I'm not kidding and I'm not exaggerating. They stole people from Russian Federation and they demanded a ransom for them. They demanded money for them, and they conducted kidnapping. They conducted torture of Russian soldiers. They conducted mass terrorist attacks on schools. The biggest terrorist attack was when a few hundred of children were killed, brutally killed and tortured by these Chechen terrorists. And these Chechen terrorists are still covered by NATO countries, by mainly European countries. And these Chechen terrorists are walking among European countries, and it's a shame. For it must be a shame for these countries to let these terrorists and criminals in. There is no excuse for this terrorist scum to be walking among these civilians.
Yeah, can you recall some other accusations of Russia before 2014? I recall poisoning of Yushchenko. That's yes,
Well, the Smolensk
some
tragedy of when the ex-president of Poland died in the plane crash. Do you remember that stuff?
uh,
Well, Poland is sure that we
yeah.
killed of course, the main thing is Georgian war. When Georgia attacked our peacekeepers and attacked southern Ossetia and Abkhazia, unprovoked war, they waged an unprovoked war, and um, we had to intervene and to make a peacekeeping
They will say
operation.
this point. I know what they say about Georgia. It's not
Yes,
argument for them, but
eh,
Poland,
eh,
it's more interesting.
well, they were, and I guess a week ago, Poland government made a conclusion that it was an accident and Russia wasn't involved in it. So but for years, for I don't know, 15 years, I guess, they were sure that it was Russia who shot down a plane or conducted a terrorist attack to kill former Poland president. The poisoning of Navalny, well, it was
It was
after,
after
yes.
Skripal as
Well,
well after
there was a spy.
Skripal,
No, no, no. Before Skripal,
Litvinenko.
Litvinenko, yes. But I'm sure that maybe it was us.
It may
But
be.
he, but this scum deserved it. Yes.
I'd say it may be his own chief of the time, Berezovsky. It was very sneaky person.
Yes.
Who knows
Yes.
what be- between them?
And Berezovsky and the death of Berezovsky is also a very complicated thing because he hanged himself,
Yeah.
but he had a broken rib. He had broken ribs and I guess broken nose or something with his face. So he punched himself into ribs, broke his nose, and then hanged himself.
Uh,
A very dedicated person.
a few months after he sent a mail to Putin, where he asked to came home to Russia.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Soon after Skripal poisoning, nothing there. It's just an incident.
coincidence.
Yeah, highly
Uh,
likely.
yes, it's really highly likely. And Skripal poisoning, well, uh, uh,
With Skripal poison, it's a very interesting story. Scary Russian agent with modern poison,
mhm,
uh, trying to poison all the opponents, and only one death caused by this poison is
mhm.
just a well, semi-homeless woman
Yes,
accidentally attacked. It's
yes, yes. This Novichok poison is very, very amusing stuff because one arms dealer was poisoned with it. Navalny was poisoned with it. Skripal was poisoned with it, and no one of the targets wasn't killed with it, but it's said that it's one of the most poisoning stuff in the world, but no one was killed with it, except for that homeless person. And it's one of the most ineffective poison in the world then. And
Yeah.
it's really mind-blowing stuff to think that our secret service can't kill a person. Why use this stuff that that is worldwide known, that we are using, and we use it again and again, and we can't kill even a single person with it. It's
One person accidentally.
yes, a homeless person. It's really strange.
It's not homeless, but they. But not. It's not important.
I guess
She's not homeless, but it's possible they was drug users. But I'm not sure.
oh, yes, and I guess one of their pets died, but I'm not also
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
Yes,
And a special interesting thing, it's a Skripal figure, a guy who actually supported Putin while living in Britain, playing World of Tanks, and have had no mm, any important information. He already give all he able to give to Britain. What the sense to kill him? What the sense to kill him? I don't understand. Hard to understand.
yes.
Another topic we accused of is Magnitsky case. Do you remember Magnitsky case?
I'm too young to remember, but I've heard about this case, but really vaguely.
Maybe something else happened. What? It's
Yes, within 20 years, a lot of stuff
yeah.
happened.
It's how I feel. Like what it was a lot of years, and I'm always sure that I'm accused of something, that Russia big in something or bad in something. And now that Konstantin Kisin saying me, it was okay, it was good. NATO members, NATO is not, wasn't against Russia, never. It's you, paranoia.
Well, he lived in different paradigma. Well, he lived in the West, and well, he wasn't following the same news as we did. So he has a different point of view.
Yes, and it's not too bad point of view to say honest. He is pretty rational sometimes in a lot of his conclusions.
What happened is a few students in Kiev went out on the street to protest against this because they were pro-Western and they wanted Ukraine to move in a pro-Western direction, representing about half of Ukrainian society. But a small group of students, protests happened, right? They were brutally beaten by the police. And when pictures and videos of this event went basically viral in Ukraine, people then came out on the streets to protest against what they saw is a tyrannical government brutalizing its citizens. And that is when the street protests started.
Well, here he says that a few Ukrainian students went up to the streets during the beginning of Maidan, and then they were brutally beaten by Ukrainian police. That's simply not true. The youngest Ukrainian student who was beaten up was 30 years old. It's one of the main myths that was completely busted more than 10 years ago. Then there were no students who went there. There were this incident the nationalists and football hooligans went there, and there was a clash between that day. There was a clash between these football hooligans and nationalists, between them and the police. And then the protests spiraled out of their control, and the police stood still. There wasn't police brutality. If you see the pictures of Maidan, the police stood there, and the peaceful protesters threw bricks at them. They threw Molotov cocktails at them. They
Molotov cocktails wasn't there. It was later. Molotov
Yes,
cocktails.
I say it was later. Later on, after this incident with the students, the football hooligans and nationalists threw food. They threw Molotov cocktails. They threw bricks. They used chains. They hit the police with chains, and the police stood and took it, took it. And then there was snipers, and no one really knows who they were, because they were shots at the police and at the protesters, and no one still knows who they were, because the investigation is never figured out who they were. Maybe it was really made to spark the revolution out of the control, because it made protesters more violent. And
I just want, yes, I agree with you. It's just a thing which our adversaries will answer, like it was already hot stage of the conflict, and Ukraine, president of Ukraine is started all this fire. I just show a fragment right now about that events with students, and journalists, Western journalists who saw what's happened, they just clearly lied to their audience. That's one of the cause of that hot stage which happened later. This best
yeah,
media made it partly. I don't know, was there CIA or not?
So, and later on, he says, what kind of threat was to the Crimea, because Crimea was part of Ukraine, and he didn't know that when the Maidan took place, the anti-Maidan took place, because a lot of people didn't want to join European Union because they had strong ties with Russia, and they knew that if they joined European Union, the economic connections with Russia may be at risk. So they didn't want to overthrow Yanukovych. They were against it because it was coup d'etat, because Yanukovych, whether you like it or not, was elected president. And when he was overthrown, people also protested against it, and these people who overthrew government in Kiev, they some of them were Nazis, and they said that we're going to Crimea, to Donbass region, to deal with these people, and these Nazis were heading to Crimea, and that's why
I have an argument.
Mhm.
That guy Konstantin Kisin said that it's the same situation between Russia and Chechnya.
Putin says we didn't start the war in 2022. The war started in 2014 when they attacked Ukraine, attacked the eastern regions. We saw it in the clip that we just played. And this is just nonsense, factual nonsense. It's like saying, you know, in the early 90s when I still lived in Russia, Chechnya tried to break away from Russia. So what did Russia do? Russia attempted to prevent that from happening by force.
Do you saw it? And like Eastern Ukraine is the same thing.
No, because the first thing that that government did when the new Ukraine government did when they took power, they canceled the law that allowed Russian language to be spoken in those regions on the government level. And this meant a lot to those regions because those regions were 95% Russian speaking. And those regions wanted closer connections to Russia. And in Chechnya, we had almost 4 years negotiations with them because it broke up with us in 1991, Chechnya, and we only the war started with Chechnya in 1994, and we had peace talks with them. We wanted to give them a lot of autonomy and a lot of money to them, only for them to return to Russia. But Ukrainians, they didn't want to give any autonomy. They didn't want to give any freedoms to these regions. They said, you are gonna live like we are going to tell you, or you are going to die, because they sent there the neo-Nazis, the hooligans, who were going to make a massacre there. And that's why we annexed Crimea.
I agree with you. I just want to add, can it be said that Ukraine had any real power and internal affairs if the legitimately elected president who was voted for by the residents of the southeast was overthrown unconstitutional means? I mean, it was a time where no power, no president. Southeast voted for Yanukovych.
Yes.
And
Yes.
when they rebelled not against duly elected president, against dead guys, some guys
Yes.
who said we are power now, and now
Yes.
we have our internal affairs, and we can be compared to a situation between Russia and Chechnya. I'm not sure that that time is possible to say it was a government at all. It was a country. It wasn't just some guys said they are power now.
And it was just a coup d'etat. It
Yes.
wasn't a revolution, it was a coup d'etat.
I'll remind you that in 2014 he said Russian soldiers are not in Crimea, and then gave out medals to Russian soldiers who were in Crimea for taking Crimea. Right? Not everything Vladimir Putin says is always true.
I didn't remember medals for taking Crimea, but I remember fine that in Crimea autonomy, duly elected deputies voted for reunification with Russia in the situation again where has wasn't any power, wasn't duly elected president in Ukraine. It's
Yes, I agree. And uh, it was a real democracy because people in Crimea, they almost took up arms against Ukraine, and they were ready to defend against Ukraine. And if we didn't send troops there, there would have been the same thing as in Donbass. There would have been a war. I'm 100% sure, because I've seen a lot of guys that were ready to take up arms and fight for their land, fight for their language, and fight for their past, for their present, and for their future as Russian people.
Is that a CIA-backed coup? Now, I think it's probably true that the West saw this as an opportunity to help Ukraine move in a Western direction. So every revolution in history has always been supported by the enemies of the superpower that was in the... Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. The Venezuelan Revolution was exactly the same, funded by the British.
Every revolution is like this, right?
The US supported a revolution against an enemy right in this moment. And before he said NATO wasn't against Russia. It's just funny moment, nothing else.
What he's saying is very simple. There are natural laws of history, which is population and economy is destiny. China, India, Russia, BRICS as a whole, we are the new force on the block. America, Europe, and the West is in decline. And either you accept this and go gently, quietly into the night, or it's going to be a painful process like the one you're experiencing now.
I just want to say, ask ChatGPT for a list of signs of a crumbling empire, and you'll understand that Russia doesn't need the decline of the Western Empire. The empire is collapsing on its own, and the war in Ukraine is just one of the noticeable signs of this decay. We found ourselves in this situation not of our own accord. That's the text I made. It's an answer to Konstantin Kisin argument that Putin wants West to decline. I don't think so. We all found ourselves in this situation where West declining for decades, and now we need to find some way out of this. As faster West will understand it and will take new role, second role, the faster it will be peace in the world. And it's easy to imagine that the US will grow again and even more, because they have potential, they have AI technology, they leaders of the technologies. They need to rethink their laws. They think they need Elon Musk, guys like Elon Musk in their government, and the US can be great again, I'm sure. But now, with all internal conflict, civil problem, declining economy, we can say it's really declining, but it's on the way.
Yes, it is. Yes, it's declining in European Union.
It's just going to crash. It's for sure. For US, it's slightly better because they got contracts to give gas to the Europe, and they give best of entrepreneurs from Europe who came to the US to better place as they believe, at least for now. And economy overall, it's okay in the US as I see, but it's not for a long time. It's maybe 2 or 3 years. It's just guessing.
Yes, well, for the most part, I agree. Yes, and let's finish on that sad note.
Okay, thank you for participation in this little chaotic structured video.
You're welcome.